Todd, an interview at Mr. George Parker's. August 2nd, 1980.
Kansas and rented a house there, my father did.
Yeah.
And when that was over,
Okay, now, August 2nd, 1984. This is Joe Todd intervieweth George Parker. No, Mr. George Parker.
no,
Just George Parker.
just George.
Just plain George.
Okay, I'm just what I was when I was a boy.
Mr. Parker, where were you born?
Indiana.
And when's your birthday?
It's mystery. I can't tell you hardly because I've got one of them hot headache insulin.
Oh, yeah.
They give me trouble. But you can figure out the guess pretty close to it.
Oh, how old are you?
86 years old. 96 years old.
96 years old.
And I get it out like an 86.
You were born about 1888.
Yeah, that's about it.
Who's your father?
Well, he was William Parker. And he was born in Illinois and come over and Indiana and married my mother and just stayed there and went farming.
What was your mother's name? What was your mother's name?
Katie.
What was her name before she was married?
Oh, I'll have to study about that in a minute. I haven't oh shoot. I know there's I can't remember.
Okay.
I'll think of it maybe later.
Okay. What kind of work your father do?
Well, when he got acquainted with my mother, he was a tie maker when he come into
What do you make?
that part of
You make clocks?
tie maker for the railroad.
Oh, time maker.
Tie.
Oh, time maker. Okay. Yeah, okay, time maker. Which railroad did he make ties for?
I'm a little hard of hearing.
Which railroad did he work for?
He didn't work for any railroad.
He just made ties for all of them.
He was a freelance.
What kind of trees did he use to make ties?
Heck, I wouldn't know. I was a kid that little. And when after he married his mother, he went to carpenter work, and he put in a couple of years of that, and then he managed to get a hold of a couple of old pups and went to farming.
Mm-hmm.
And he farmed there till we come to Kansas.
What part of Indiana is that in?
Southern part.
What's the nearest town?
I can't tell you. Jackson was one of them.
Yeah. What year?
Let's see. Wait That's the regular town where they went to the church too. And we went to school a while there. We went
What school did you
St.
go to?
Anthony.
St. Anthony.
St. Anthony was the capital of that town.
Is that where you started the school? St. Anthony?
Yeah, that's where I finished up in Indiana,
Yeah.
the school.
How big
I
was the school?
worked at Guyana. Guyana's where I went to school.
Yeah. How big was that school?
Oh, about big as this room, a little bigger.
About 10 by 12 or something like that?
Yeah,
How many?
It's small. There's 25 or 30 kids. That's where I met my first sweetheart.
What was her name?
Williams.
Williams.
Yeah.
What kind of games you play in school?
Oh, mostly, I can. Just had several different games. They'd play them. Well, had sticks and dig a little hole, and they'd try to keep certain boys from certain holes and all that stuff. And I got my chin skin rainy day.
How come your folks moved to Kansas?
Well, they didn't move to Kansas.
They didn't.
My daddy had a cousin that was living down here below where Purcell is now. And somewhere or other they got in touch together. And that he just up and took over.
What year was that?
Huh?
What year did y'all come down here?
Well, you can figure out the year I was born, and I was 16. And I don't know.
Be about 1904.
Yeah, something like that.
How'd you come to Oklahoma?
In a wagon. He drove one wagon, I drove another.
Tell me about the trip.
Oh boy, it'd take a week. I've seen things and done things, done ways. But we struck eastern Kansas, and Kansas was just beginning to settle in, too. And we would come to a farmer's house, and we'd get directions from them and go on. Sometimes we'd camp near their house in order to have water to cook with. We cooked on the open fire. Mother was paralyzed. She wasn't able to do anything. But then she got, never did get over it, but then it bothered her all of her life.
How come she is paralyzed?
I wouldn't know. I was just a kid then, and it happened while I was under something like 4 or 5 summers, I don't know.
What kind of wagon did you drive?
Oh, just common 4-wheel wagon.
Have a brand name?
No.
No.
No, I don't know whether it even had brand.
What kind of stuff did you pack up for the trip? What did you bring from Indiana?
Well, from Indiana we went over to Illinois. And Father had a mother over there, and we spent a week there, and us boys put in a week of hoeing corn for Borderhurst daughter's husband.
How long did the trip take you?
All summer and part of next summer.
So you were on the road quite a bit, quite a long time.
Yeah, we was till fall. We left out about, I don't remember now what, summer's near fall.
Can you tell me, how did you pack the wagon? What did you bring?
What do you mean?
I mean, what kind of household goods did you put in the wagon to bring with you?
Well, we didn't put no household goods with us. We put our belongings, our clothes, and something to eat and wear, is all we needed.
Didn't bring any furniture?
No, shoot, that's too far. The shape we was in to get food with furniture.
What'd you do with the furniture you left in Indiana?
I don't know.
You just left it there?
I think you just, I don't know, remember Purcell any of it, any of them. He could have, I wasn't looking for nothing, and some of the neighbors might have bought.
Yeah.
We just rented land. And,
How come your father decided to come to Oklahoma?
that I wouldn't know. I never did hear him say it, and never did ask. Unless it was getting a letter from my uncle that was in part of what was there then, or is now, Oklahoma. He was, had a place from an Indian married man, Indian married, and he had a big bunch of land that his name was Staley, and he was a school teacher. And he put in a bunch of houses and set off so much land, it wasn't nothing. It is all wild. And began hiring men to put in that place, and some way or other, I don't know whether his cousins and mother and father lived in Kansas, and we stopped near him and spent well, then we went to school that winter in Columbus, Kansas.
Columbus, Kansas.
Yeah. And when spring come, why, this other cousin of his come up to where we was at in Kansas, just north of Columbus. And I'm thinking more about that than I'd ever thought I would.
Were any of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
I wouldn't know. He wasn't.
What about your grandfather?
Well, grandfather was dead at that time, that I was coming in the family. But I don't know what killed him or nothing, but I never did. My people them days though were all that way. People that didn't talk much.
Yes. What part of Oklahoma did you settle?
Well, we come down to this little town here, the two towns here,
Lexington?
here, Lexington and Purcell. And we zigzagged around here. They had some fences down in here. And we had to zigzag around them and from the river down and then away from the river and then back around. Coming down from Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City then wasn't bigger than a jug of whiskey.
How big was Lexington when you came through?
Well, sir, it had 2 rows of houses. About, I guess it covered 1,000 yards, something like that, square. But then there were, them things was about as long as this house is, maybe double, that would be sure. And on each side of the road, and they weren't much bigger than 2 or 3 of these rooms.
Lexington back in the early days was a saloon town.
It was.
Had 13 saloons there at one time.
13 saloons in Lexington?
That's right.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Where did they get the whiskey for the saloons?
They had it right there. When we come, every other house is a whiskey house on each side of the road.
That's about the way it was in Lexington.
Did Purcell have whiskey?
No.
This is Indian territory. No whiskey for sure.
No.
But in
And
McLean County.
Yeah.
we come to the river, and they told us to be careful or we'd bog. So the man that carried the mail gave Paul instructions just how to dodge those bog holes. And we crossed the river on the sand.
How'd you dodge the bog holes? How'd you know where they were?
Well, you just had to guess and watch, just look at where a wagon wheels had been. That fella was, if I know anything about it, I don't know about what he does or anything, just what they told me.
Yeah.
But he was traveling with the mail every day, back and forth, between Purcell and Lex.
What kind of house did you live in when you first came here?
We lived in just a common board shack.
How many rooms?
Two rooms down and 2 rooms up.
How many kids?
We lived under the roof.
How many kids in the family?
Well, that's me, Joe, and Rena, and Mary, and Bessie. Let's see. Bill was born after us. So I guess that is it.
Mm-hmm.
Got 5 of us.
What kind of work did your father do when you first got here?
Well, he rented the farm.
From Mr. Staley?
Yeah. Yeah, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 12 rent houses out. he was a school teacher, and he was pretty good wrestler. He made himself rich with it anyway. And his Indian wife died, then he married a white woman.
What was his Indian wife's name?
I never did know her.
Yeah.
She died before we got there, and he married this other woman.
Did you finish school down here? Did you go to school down here in Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah, I put in a good many years, married, and we had a couple of boys, babies, and she took fever. I don't know.
Where'd you meet your wife?
Here in Oklahoma.
What, here in Lexington?
Well, out on the farm.
Yeah.
As the years run by, we lived on this first farm there, and till the man had to give up his Indian holdings, and then the land was bought by most of the people. Some of them rented from him, and he moved off to Oklahoma City, and he hadn't been up there but a short while, so his wife died. And I never did know. He had two boys, and they went with him, and they said they was Bearcats. I knew them as they grew up and went to school with him.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember Statehood Day?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that day.
What do you want to know about it?
Well, was there a big celebration?
No. Just, right now, it wouldn't be kind of hardly worthwhile to go and see.
What'd you do on that day?
I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, I was working.
What were you doing? What kind of work?
Farmers.
So you're a farmer on Statehood Day?
Yeah. Statehood Day, I was farming for Daddy. Fact is, I wasn't 21 yet.
So you didn't take time off to celebrate?
We didn't know what celebration was.
Do you remember the Spanish-American War, 1898?
Slightly.
What do you remember about that? What stories did you
I
hear?
couldn't tell you. I just know that the boys was called and took out of here. And some of them come back and some of them didn't.
What about World War I? 1917, 1918.
Well, we had a hell of a time. Just to speak plainly, making a living.
What about the Depression of 1907? Around Statehood Day.
Well, that followed World War I. And you know, if you had any idea what the World War I cost us to live and go, then, well, you know what happened when that followed up. Well, I couldn't tell you.
What kind of crops did you raise?
About corn, wheat, broom corn, oats, cattle,
Any cotton?
and cotton. I raised cotton till I got where I could live without it.
Tell me about chopping cotton.
Chopping cotton, I really chop cotton and the whole corn. And so if you're going to think about whole corn, you know what cotton chopping. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but it was hard to pick. You still had to get out on your knees and drag a sack long as this bed. If you got anything in it, time you got to the other end, you would water. If you had anything to you, you had that sack full when you got it to the other end. Or tried to anyway, and sometimes it wasn't that long, you turn and come back. But then all the way through.
How many pounds could you pick in one day?
Well, from 50 pounds to 150. Now, this depends on how hard you worked. Some people couldn't get it over 100 toes. But then we was proud when we got 100. Just to be proud. And some people could pick more than others. It's gifted that way, you see. And maybe it others.
How come Mr. Staley had to sell his land? Government, was that statehood?
Government took hold. And I don't know, this is just guesswork. He took Staley down, stopped him, and took his land away from him, all but enough for him to live on. And otherwise, I wouldn't know nothing about it.
What'd you do for recreation around here? You gonna go to dances or what?
Well, I used to go. I work all day and go to dance every night, and then work the next day. But I worked on the farm different to most farmers. Most farmers just have a team in the hole, and that is it. I had anywhere from 15 to 20 cows milking. And that was my living. That was the biggest part of my living for some years till I got where I quit cotton and went to broom corn.
Tell me about pulling broom corn or jerking broom corn. How do you do that?
Well, of course you got planted, have a team and a planter, plant it, and you got to cultivate it just like corn. You spread a row, and it gets up there about so high.
3 feet?
And then the next thing you know, you quit it, and the next thing you know, it's way up there, higher than you can reach. And that head is up there about that long.
About a foot?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
10 inches, so, and then you've got to take, you lay that by and let it go. Get up there and get that head. That head would be about as long as my arm.
Yeah, about a foot long.
Yeah. And you've got to go along and you have a knife, blade about that long. And you go along and you cut that broom corn and till you get a handful. Then you lay it on top. Now first though, when the broom corn gets ready to work, you go in there and you pull that big stalk on each side of it, up to where it's just about breast. That's about this side of me.
Waist high.
Waist high. And then as you break that over, you come on and you break that corn, get it this way, and break it behind you, down and as it goes by, it crosses. This one here lays on the top of that one over there with that head about that far over the road.
So you crisscross them.
Yeah. Then they come along here, along this row here, and one cutter comes down here, cutting the heads on this side, and they lay it on top of that table, that whole table. And then as they go along, and then when they get to the end of the rope, we'll turn and take back another. We generally have, anywhere that if we can get 20 hands to cut them heads, you come along, you work them heads this way. Grab one behind and cut it. Other in your hand, and maybe you can hold 2 or 3 of them big heads. If you can, you lay it over here on the road we were cutting, all right on top of that, in piles.
Yeah.
And the piles generally about that far apart.
Couple feet.
And when they get that ready, they've got a wagon and team coming down and getting on the other side of that road, and 2 men, one there and one there, and they load them up.
Was there a broom corn factory around here? They made brooms?
Not around here. We had to go to and you got a broom there for nurse. Of course it takes more than one. Whole lot take about a dozen to make a broom. But then anyway, right now I lost it on that.
You know, broom corn?
That back up.
Yeah.
But then
So it took 2 or 3 heads to make one broom?
yeah, something like that. I don't know. We didn't make the brooms. We put those heads after they cure. We put them on slats in the barn, and after they dry out and cure up, why, then they're ready to go to the factory, and the factory. And then we had to go to Chickasha, sell ours there from Purcell. And what was that? That's the only outfit that did. buys.
What happened to all the whiskey at Statehood? They closed all the saloons at Statehood. What happened to all the whiskey?
I don't know. I've got something never bothered my mind with the whiskey. But then before I was 21, I'm sure, we had that whiskey bins. The government took care of that whiskey bin and stopped it. And then after that, they was just allowed 1 or 2 saloons in Purcell and Lexington. And
Tell me-
to sell.
Tell me about coming to town on Saturday night. What would you do?
Well, we never done much of it. We just stayed at home. We worked Saturday night up till bedtime anyhow. we didn't run around like the boys do now. Is that right, Butter? I guess he's good sleep.
As a boy on the farm, what kind of chores did you do?
Chores?
Yeah.
That's just feeding the stock. Just put out feed. Some this way, that way. And then the horses had stables and they stood in there and they had their feed boxes and hay bins in front of them. And they're just like they are now, where they got horses.
When you had your 20 milk cows, how long would it take to milk them every morning?
Oh, 2-3 hours.
What time would you start?
Well, in the morning we started as soon as it got daylight. Time we got everything fed and ready, it is sunup. And you went to milk. Or you fed you fed the calves first. And those the calves that were still suckling or well, they got their meal before we did ours. When we went to milk, we milked the cow down to a certain point and left maybe 1 or 2 tits, whatever the amount of milk she gives. We knew what the calf could handle and what it takes to keep him going. And we turned to the cows and they got the mother milk. Then we put them in a pen to themselves. There's a bunch of them in a pen. They didn't take much to hold them, but it just took a little leading.
What was your wife's name?
Well, one of them was May was the first one. She'd taken anyway, she'd taken the sick, supposed to be no killing or no no killing off of her. And if I took her to western climate, the mountain climate, she'd be alright. But I sold out and I've taken the 2 boys and her, and we hit Colorado. And we went on the train all the way there. And then we spent a summer that I forget what the name of the town was, up there pretty close to the capital.
Up around Denver,
Yeah, just south of them.
Colorado Springs,
Huh?
Colorado Springs.
Yeah. And Colorado Springs, yeah. Yeah. Then I put in the summer there, and I had to have winter work, keep living, feed her and the boys, and myself, of course. And then I went over into the mining country. Got in over there and got a job at 220 feet underground. And I didn't mine any oats. I done
What kind of mine was it?
coal.
Coal mine?
Yeah.
When did you return to Oklahoma?
Oh, 4 years later. We kept there, she lived a little over 2 years, and I had to marry her. And her daddy come out there during that time, and he passed away just before she did. And I had to bury her, and I had an awful time paying bills.
What year did you go to Colorado?
I couldn't tell you now, but I can't remember things. I've got a disease in my kidney that don't let me remember things just like I want to.
What about the Depression of the 1930s?
It's pretty rough. I see this back here. Oh, yeah. Well, it didn't bother us so much. We couldn't buy, we just had to do us what clothes we could get and what produce we could sell and make it eat. And that's when I was with my daddy yet. He was still alive.
When you came back to Oklahoma, did you come back to Lexington?
Came back to Purcell.
From Colorado, did you come back here?
Yeah. So I come down on the railroad when I come back. Just, I went up on the railroad and I come back on the railroad.
What did you first think of Oklahoma when you first got here, back in 1904?
Well, I was just about 17 years old, and if you can tell me what a 17-year-old boy thinks of when he hits a strange country, well, you can beat me.
What was Oklahoma City like when you went through it?
Oh, it was a real bit of dump up like one of these times here. Maybe not as big.
Ever go to Guthrie?
Huh?
Ever go to Guthrie?
Yeah, I've been to Guthrie lots. In later years, now then, after I married again, I died,
Well, Mr. Parker, I think we have a good talk.
Yes, I've had a good time. When I come home, after I got my death spade, well, I come home. My boys had left them with Daddy, and while they was there, well, he dug a well, and he fell in that well. He went down to see how much water he hit. He knew he hit the water, but he didn't know what much he'd eat his dinner, and was so anxious to know that he'd have a good well right at the house. And the water was awful scarce them days long, and so when he somewhere something got in his nose, and when he got back, he standing with his foot in a loop of a rope, and he pulled himself up, and when he got to where the air hit him, it just pushed that gas that he got out of that water, down by that water somewhere. We never know. And he just fell out back into the well and killed him. So I had to, when I got my death spade, there's two brothers, just younger than me, and they well able to take care of mother and sister and my boys. They had ass around, both of them fellas married, and nothing to live on and all that. If I come back, there it was. The devil was one way.
Well, I want to thank you.
I guess that's enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.